The stars shimmered and twisted like water in the cold darkness of space. Something was coming. Something big. Admiral HFY stood on the bridge of his massive warship, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on his screens. Earth, the third planet from a yellow star in a small corner of the galaxy. His ship was one of 300 in the Catherian Empire fleet. Each ship was bigger than most human cities. Each one carried enough firepower to burn a continent. This would be easy. It always was. ZEX single quotes HAI had done this 17 times before. 17 worlds had surrendered to him. Some tried to fight. Some begged for mercy. Some tried to hide. None of it mattered. The Catherian Empire was too strong, too advanced, too powerful. He looked at the planet again. So small, so helpless. The humans living there had no idea what was coming. Soon they would learn. Soon they would kneel. Colonel Jake Martinez was drinking his third cup of coffee when the alarm started screaming. He dropped his mug and ran to the control room at NORAD. The coffee spilled across his desk, but he did not care. The screens were showing something impossible. What am I looking at? Jake asked. Sergeant Kelly Brooks looked up from her station. Her face was white with fear. Sir, we have contacts. Lots of them. They just appeared at the edge of our solar system. Jake stared at the screen. Hundreds of red dots filled the display. Each dot was bigger than anything humans had ever built. They had not been there 10 minutes ago. Now they were just sitting there, like they owned the place. That's impossible, Jake whispered. Nothing moves that fast. Sir, Kelly said, her voice shaking. They're not moving at all. They just appeared, like they teleported or something. Across the country, Dr. Amy Richardson was already running down the hallway of the Xenological Defense Initiative building. Someone had called her at home. Someone had told her that first contact was happening. Right now, today. She burst into the command center where Lieutenant Chris Parker was waiting for her. His uniform was messy, like he had gotten dressed in a hurry. Show me everything, Amy said. Chris pointed at the main screen. 312 objects. Each one is between 2 and 5 miles long. They appeared at the same time, all in formation, perfect formation. Amy felt her heart pounding. This was what she had trained for, what she had prepared for. But seeing it happen was different from reading about it in books. This was real. Aliens were real, and they were here. Any communication attempts? She asked. Nothing yet, Chris replied. They're just sitting there, waiting. President Lisa Thompson was in the Oval Office when the phone rang. It was 3 a.m, but she answered immediately. Sleep was not important anymore. Nothing was important except the voice on the other end of the line. Madam President, said Defense Secretary Ryan Cole, we need you in the Situation Room. Now. 5 minutes later, Lisa was sitting at a long table surrounded by the most important people in the military. General Matt Sullivan looked like he had aged 10 years in the last hour. How bad is it? Lisa asked. Matt pulled up images on the big screen. Each of those ships could destroy our biggest city. We count over 300 of them. Our entire nuclear arsenal might scratch the paint on one of their smaller vessels. Lisa stared at the screen. She had known this day might come. Every president since the 1940s had been briefed about the possibility. But knowing something might happen and watching it happen were very different things. What do they want? She asked. We don't know yet, Matt replied. But based on their formation and position, this doesn't look like a peaceful visit. Admiral HFY checked his communications. Device. The humans had detected them, of course. Their primitive sensors could see large objects in space, even if they could not understand what they were looking at. It was time to make first contact. He activated the translation matrix. The computer would take his words and change them into the local languages. It had done this hundreds of times before. The process was simple and effective. "Attention, inhabitants of the third planet," Zex-Hi said into his communicator. His words would reach every radio and television on Earth. "I am Admiral Zex-Hi of the Catherian Empire. Your world has been selected for integration into our domain." On Earth, every screen flickered, every radio crackled. Then a voice spoke in dozens of languages at once. The English version was clear but strange, like someone reading words they did not understand. "You have 72 hours to surrender unconditionally. Prepare your population for relocation and labor assessment. Resistance will result in pacification protocols. This is your only warning. The Catherian Empire does not give second chances." The message repeated 3 times, then stopped. In the NORAD command center, Jake Martinez stared at his screens in shock. Around the world, billions of people had just heard the same message. Earth had 72 hours to surrender. 72 hours before the aliens would attack. Amy Richardson looked at the data streaming across her computers. Labor assessment. Pacification protocols. These were not words that peaceful explorers would use. These aliens were not here to make friends. They were here to take over. President Thompson stood up slowly. Around the table, generals and advisors waited for her to speak. The weight of 7 billion lives pressed down on her shoulders. "Get me every leader on Earth," she said. "Get me our best scientists. Get me our best military minds. We have 72 hours to figure out how to survive this." Outside, the alien fleet waited in the darkness. 300 ships full of weapons and soldiers. They had done this before. They knew how it would end. But Admiral Zex-Hi had never conquered humans before. He had never met a species that had fought world wars and survived. He had never encountered creatures that turned disasters into opportunities and defeats into lessons. He was about to learn something new about the galaxy. He was about to discover that some prey fight back. The countdown had begun. Admiral Zex-Hi stood in his private study, looking at the reports about Earth. The data was exactly what he expected. The humans were primitive, weak. Their technology was centuries behind the Catherian Empire. This would be the easiest conquest of his career. He picked up the first report from his science officer. The humans still used chemical rockets to reach their own moon. Chemical rockets. The Catherians had stopped using such crude methods 2,000 years ago. Their most powerful weapons were simple nuclear devices. Nuclear weapons might hurt one Catherian ship if they were very lucky. The second report made Zex-Hi smile. Human cities were built on the surface of their planet with no energy shields. No orbital defense platforms worth mentioning. Their military forces were scattered across dozens of small nations that barely worked together. It would be like stepping on insects. Scholar Velinara entered his study carrying a thick data pad. She was the fleet's expert on alien biology and behavior. Her job was to study new species before conquest. "Admiral," she said, "I have completed the preliminary assessment of the human species." Zex-Hi gestured for her to sit. "Tell me what we're dealing with." Velinara activated her data pad. Images of humans appeared on the wall screen. Standard carbon-based life forms. Average height between 5 and 6 feet. No natural armor or weapons. No enhanced strength or speed. Their brains show basic problem-solving ability, but nothing exceptional. "Any special concerns?" Zex-Hi asked. "None," Velinara replied. "They appear to be a typical pre-space civilization. Physical capabilities are within normal ranges for their size. No evidence of advanced mental abilities or unusual adaptive traits." Zex-Hi nodded. It was what he expected. "What about their social structure?" "Fragmented," Velinara said. "Over 200 separate political entities. They fight among themselves regularly. Their largest military force belongs to something called the United States, but even that is small by galactic standards. The admiral looked at the numbers again. The entire human military was smaller than the crew of his flagship. Their biggest warships were tiny metal boats that floated on water. Water! They still fought battles on the surface of their planet using primitive vehicles. Recommended pacification force? He asked. 10% of current fleet strength should be more than adequate, Velinar replied. Standard occupation protocols will apply. Minimal resistance expected. Zex-High was already planning the victory celebration when another officer entered his study. Commander Theckener was in charge of labor assessment for new worlds. Admiral, Theckener said, I need to discuss the collection quotas for this operation. Of course, Zex-High replied. What are your initial numbers? Theckener pulled up new data on the wall screen. Current human population is approximately 7 billion. After standard pacification losses, we estimate 5.5 billion survivors, suitable for labor classification. Zex-High looked at the breakdown. 2 billion would go to the mining worlds, 1 billion to agricultural planets. The rest would be distributed to construction projects across the Empire. It was good business. Humans looked strong enough for heavy labor, and there were so many of them. Physical conditioning? The Admiral asked. Adequate, Theckener replied. They show good endurance and adaptability. Their hands are well suited for detailed work. Brain. Capacity is sufficient for following simple instructions. On Earth, Dr. Amy Richardson had not slept in 36 hours. She sat in the command center of the Xenological Defense Initiative, studying every piece of data her team could gather about the alien fleet. Lieutenant Chris Parker brought her another cup of coffee. Any luck breaking their communication codes? Amy shook her head. Their technology is too advanced. But we're learning things from their transmissions. Things that worry me. She pulled up a translation matrix on her screen. Look at these word patterns. They keep using terms like labor assessment and collection quotas. This isn't just conquest. Chris, they're planning to use us as slaves. Chris sat down next to her. How many people are we talking about? All of us, Amy said quietly. From what I can figure out, they plan to move our entire population off Earth. We become workers in their empire. The lucky ones anyway. Meanwhile, Captain Ashley Davis was working around the clock to prepare Earth's orbital defenses. She had 12 small space stations and 43 communication satellites. It was not much against 300 alien warships, but it was what they had. Her second in command, Major Tyler Grant, looked exhausted. Ashley, we need to talk about the missile systems. What about them? She asked. We have maybe 2,000 nuclear warheads that can reach space, Tyler said. Even if every single one hits a target, we're still outnumbered 150 to 1. Ashley stared at the tactical display. The alien ships were slowly moving closer to Earth. In 18 hours, they would be close enough to begin their attack. 18 hours to prepare for a battle they could not win. What about the ground-based systems? She asked. Major Grant is coordinating those, Tyler replied. But Ashley, we both know this is hopeless. Their smallest ship is bigger than our largest building. Captain Ashley Davis had been a soldier for 15 years. She had fought in 3 wars and dozens of smaller conflicts. She had never faced impossible odds before, but she had faced bad odds many times. Maybe, she said. But impossible and difficult are 2 different things. We make them work for it. In the Pentagon, General Matt Sullivan was meeting with military leaders from around the world. The video conference included generals from 50 different countries. For the first time in human history, every military on Earth was working together. Status report, Matt said. General Chen Wei from China spoke first. Our missile forces are ready. We have coordinated targeting with Russian and American systems. General Okafor from Nigeria added, African air forces are prepared for defensive operations. We may not have advanced weapons, but we have pilots willing to use them. One by one, military leaders from every continent reported their readiness. It was not enough. Everyone knew it was not enough. But it was something. General Sullivan looked at the faces on his screen. These were professional soldiers. They understood the odds better than anyone. They also understood their duty. Ladies and gentlemen, he said, in 16 hours, we face an enemy unlike anything in human history. They have better weapons, better technology, and more ships than we can count. But they made one mistake. He paused and looked directly into the camera. They gave us 72 hours to get ready. They're about to learn that humans don't waste time. High above Earth, the alien fleet continued its slow approach. Admiral HFY reviewed the final preparations for battle. His crews were relaxed and confident. His weapons were charged and ready. His victory speech was already written. In a few hours, the humans would surrender or die. Either way, the Catherian Empire would have a new world and billions of new workers. It would be easy. It always was. The Admiral had no idea that easy was about to become extinct. The alien fleet was now 12 hours away from Earth. Admiral HFY expected the humans to surrender any moment. Most species gave up when they realized how hopeless their situation was. The smart ones surrendered early to avoid unnecessary damage. But the humans were not surrendering. They were not begging for mercy. They were not even trying to negotiate. Instead, they were preparing to broadcast something. Commander Thickener approached the Admiral's chair on the bridge. Sir, we're receiving a transmission request from the planet. They want to send a message to our entire fleet. HFY smiled. Finally, they want to discuss terms of surrender. Should I accept the transmission? Of course, the Admiral replied. Let's hear what they have to say. On Earth, Ambassador Beth Morrison stood in front of cameras in the United Nations building. Behind her were General Matt Sullivan and Dr. Amy Richardson. The entire world was watching. Every television station on the planet was broadcasting the same signal. Beth looked directly into the camera. She had practiced this speech for 6 hours, but her hands were still shaking. This was the most important moment in human history. Attention. Catherian Empire, she began. Her voice was calm and clear. This is Ambassador Beth Morrison, speaking for all of humanity. Across the alien fleet, translation computers turned her words into Catherian language. Admiral HFY leaned forward. In his chair, finally, the surrender speech. We have received your ultimatum, Beth continued. We have studied your fleet. We understand your intentions. And we have decided to respond. HFY nodded. Here it comes, he thought. But our response is not what you expect, Beth said. We are not surrendering. We are not begging for mercy. Instead, we are giving you a warning. The Admiral blinked. A warning. These primitive creatures were warning him? Beth took a deep breath. We are humanity. We have lived on this planet for 200,000 years. We have survived ice ages that lasted 10,000 years. We have survived plagues that killed half our population. We have survived world wars that destroyed entire continents. On the alien ships, officers looked at each other in confusion. What was this human talking about? We have split the atom and turned it into a weapon, Beth continued. We have walked. On our moon using rockets we built with primitive computers. We have built cities in deserts, under oceans, and on floating ice. We have turned wastelands into gardens, and gardens into wastelands. Dr. Amy Richardson stepped forward and activated a data transmitter. Suddenly, every screen on every alien ship began showing images from human history. The aliens saw human soldiers charging through machine gun fire in World War I. They saw civilians digging survivors out of earthquake rubble with their bare hands. They saw scientists working in radioactive zones to prevent nuclear disasters. They saw explorers walking across frozen continents and sailing across endless oceans. You look at our technology and think we are weak, Beth said. You look at our weapons and think we are helpless. You look at our divided nations and think we are easy prey. The images continued. Humans building skyscrapers with primitive tools. Humans diving into burning buildings to save strangers. Humans working in space with nothing but cloth suits between them and death. You are making a mistake, Beth said, her voice growing stronger. You mistake our kindness for weakness. You mistake our peace for fear. You mistake our hope for stupidity. Admiral. Zex-Hi watched the images with growing unease. These humans did things that made no sense. They risked their lives for strangers. They fought battles they could not win. They kept trying when any rational creature would give up. This is your only warning, Beth said. Leave our solar system now. Take your ships and your empire and find someone else to conquer. Because if you attack us, you will learn something that nothing in our galaxy has ever successfully done. She paused and looked directly into the camera. You will learn why nothing has ever hunted humans to extinction. The transmission ended. For a moment, the alien bridge was completely silent. Commander Theckener was the first to speak. Admiral, was that? Were they threatening us? Zex-Hi stared at the empty screen. In 300 years of conquest, no species had ever given the Cytherian Empire a warning. Some had tried to negotiate. Some had begged. Some had fought. But none had ever told the Empire to leave. Sir? Theckener asked again. It was just primitive bluster, Zex-Hi said finally. They're trying to frighten us with stories and pictures. It means nothing. But Scholar Velinara was studying the images that Dr. Richardson had transmitted. She ran them through the fleet's analysis computers. What she found made her stomach turn cold. Admiral, she said quietly, I need to speak with you privately. Zex-Hi followed her to his ready room. What is it? Velinara activated her data pad. Sir, I've analyzed their historical records. These humans, they fight differently than any species in our database. How so? When most species face overwhelming odds, they retreat or surrender, Velinara explained. When humans face overwhelming odds, they attack. When most species lose half their population, they give up. When humans lost half their population to disease, they invented medicine and fought back. She showed him more images. Humans at the Battle of Thermopylae. Humans defending Stalingrad. Humans rebuilding after the atomic bombs. Look at this pattern. She continued. Every time their civilization faces destruction, they come back stronger. Every time they face impossible odds, they find a way to survive. They don't just endure disasters, they learn from them. Admiral Zex-Hi looked at the data. So what are you saying? I'm saying maybe we should listen to their warning, Velinara replied. Every species we've conquered follows predictable patterns, but humans ... Humans seem to break every rule we know about intelligent life. Zex-Hi stood up and walked to the window. Outside, he could see the blue planet growing larger. It looked so peaceful, so harmless. We have 300 ships, he said. They have primitive rockets and chemical explosives. The mathematics are simple. Yes, sir, Velinara said. But mathematics assumes both sides follow the same rules. What if humans don't follow our rules? On Earth, President Lisa Thompson was meeting with her advisors in the Situation Room. The warning had been sent. Now they waited to see if the aliens would listen. Do you think it will work? Asked Defense Secretary Ryan Cole. General Sullivan shook his head. Probably not. But it? was worth trying. At least now, they know we're not going to make this easy for them. Amy Richardson was reviewing the alien fleet's movements. They're still approaching. No change in course or speed. Lisa Thompson looked around the table at the faces of her advisors. Good people, smart people. People who were about to lead humanity into the most important battle in its history. Then we prepare for the worst, she said. How long until they reach weapons range? 8 hours, General Sullivan replied. 8 hours until the real test began. 8 hours to see if humanity's warning meant anything. High above Earth, Admiral Zex High returned to his bridge. The human warning was forgotten. His crews were ready. His weapons were charged. The conquest of Earth would begin soon. But in her laboratory, Scholar Velanara continued studying human behavior patterns. The more she learned, the more worried she became. These humans were not like other species. They were not predictable. They were not rational. They were something else entirely. Something dangerous. The warning had been ignored. The alien fleet continued toward Earth without slowing down. Admiral Zex High had made his decision. The humans would learn to obey, or they would die. 20-4 alien ships broke away from the main fleet. These were the advanced destroyers, meant to clear the way for the larger invasion force. Each destroyer was 2 miles long and carried enough weapons to level a human city. Captain Ashley Davis watched them approach from her command station on Orbital Platform 7. She had 12 defense platforms scattered around Earth's orbit. Each platform had missile launchers and laser systems. It was not much against 24 alien warships, but it was what humanity had. All stations, this is Davis, she said into her communicator. Engage on my mark. Her weapons officer, Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez, looked nervous. Captain, should we wait for them to fire Ashley shook her head. They already declared war when they refused to leave. Light them up. The first human missiles launched from Platform 7. Across Earth's orbit, 11 other platforms opened fire at the same time. Nuclear warheads streaked toward the alien ships like angry stars. The alien destroyers activated their shields. Most of the human missiles exploded harmlessly against energy barriers. But some got through. One destroyer took a direct hit from a fusion warhead, and its forward section erupted in flames. Commander Kex Ver commanded the lead alien destroyer. He watched the human attack with surprise. These primitives were actually shooting at them. It was almost amusing. Return fire, he ordered. Disable their platforms, but keep them intact. We may need them later. Alien energy beams lanced out toward the human platforms. Platform 3 disappeared in a ball of fire. Platform 9 went silent after a direct hit to its reactor core, but the humans did not stop shooting. They did not try to retreat. Instead, they kept firing everything they had. Curious, Kexver muttered. Why are they not withdrawing? His tactical officer looked confused. Sir, they must know they cannot win. Why continue fighting? Before Kexver could answer, something impossible happened. Platform 7, Captain Davis's command station, launched itself at his ship. Ashley Davis had lost half her weapons, and her reactor was failing. Her platform was dying around her. Lieutenant Rodriguez was dead at his station. The smart thing to do was evacuate. Instead, she fired the platform's maneuvering thrusters and aimed directly at the nearest alien ship. This is Platform 7, she broadcast to the other stations. Ramming speed, make it count. Platform 7 slammed into the destroyer's shield generators. The energy barrier collapsed just as the platform's reactor went critical. The explosion tore a massive hole in the alien ship's hull. Kexver stared in shock as his destroyer began to spin out of control. The humans had crashed their own station into his ship. They had sacrificed themselves just to damage him. That was ... intentional? His tactical officer asked. It appears so, Kexver replied. His voice was very quiet. On Earth, Lieutenant Colonel Brandon Walsh led 60 fighter aircraft toward the alien ships. His jets were tiny compared to the destroyers. Each alien ship was bigger than his entire squadron put together. Phoenix Squadron, this is Walsh, he said over the radio. Remember, their shields are down on that lead destroyer. Hit it with everything. The human fighters dove toward the damaged alien ship like angry wasps. Their missiles were primitive, compared to alien weapons, but there were many of them. Pilot Michelle Torres was in the lead fighter. Her plane had been hit twice, and her left engine was smoking. The smart thing to do was return to base for repairs. Instead, she flew straight at the alien ship. Torres, pull back. Walsh ordered. Your plane is too damaged. Negative, sir, Michelle replied. I still have missiles. She fired her last 2 missiles at the destroyer's exposed hull, then kept flying straight toward it. Her fighter crashed into the alien ship's weapon systems. The impact was tiny compared to the massive destroyer, but it destroyed an entire. Gun Battery. Walsh watched his best pilot die and felt his heart break. Then he felt something else, something hot and angry. All fighters, follow Torres's lead, he ordered. Hit them and keep hitting them. Make every shot count. The human fighters swarmed the alien ships like insects attacking giants. When their missiles ran out, they used their guns. When their guns ran out, they rammed. Commander Kexfor had never seen anything like it. His tactical computers could not predict what the humans would do next. They did not follow any logical pattern. Sir, his weapons officer reported, we're taking damage from multiple impacts. These humans are. They're crashing their vehicles into us on purpose. I can see that, Kexver snapped. Why are they doing it? I don't know, sir. Our psychological profiles say most species retreat when facing superior force. But these humans seem to fight harder when they're losing. On the ground, Commander. Nick Stevens coordinated Earth's surface-to-space missile systems. He had launch sites scattered across 6 continents. When the alien destroyers got close enough, he fired everything at once. Hundreds of missiles streaked up from Earth's surface. Most were destroyed by alien defenses, but some got through. The damaged destroyers took more hits. Reload and fire. Again, Stevens ordered. Sir, his aide said, we're running low on missiles. At this rate, we'll be out of ammunition in 20 minutes. Stevens looked at his tactical display. The aliens were winning. Earth's platforms were destroyed or dying. The fighter squadrons were being cut to pieces. But they were making the aliens pay for every mile of space. Then we make the next 20 minutes count, he said. The battle continued for 3 hours. When it was over, 19 alien destroyers remained operational. They had destroyed all 12 human orbital platforms and shot down 58 of 60 human fighters. By any military standard, the aliens had won completely. But Commander Kexver did not feel like a winner. 5 of his destroyers were badly damaged. 2 more were barely spaceworthy. His own ship had taken more damage in 3 hours than it had in the last 10 years of conquest. Worse, the humans had never tried to retreat, not once. Even when their platforms were exploding around them, they kept fighting. Even when their fighters were outnumbered 20-1, they kept attacking. Admiral Zexhai received Kexvos' battle report with growing concern. The advance fleet had achieved its objectives, but the cost was far higher than expected. These humans fought like nothing in the galactic database. Casualties? The Admiral asked. Minimal crew losses, Kexver reported. But 7 destroyers. Need major repairs before they can fight again. The humans They targeted our ships after their own vehicles were already destroyed. They used their wreckage as weapons. Scholar Velinara listened to the report with mounting fear. The humans had lost the battle, but they had learned from it. Their tactics changed during the fight. They adapted to alien weapons and shields in real time. "Admiral," she said quietly, "I recommend we reconsider our approach." "Nonsense," Zexhai replied. "We won decisively. The humans proved they can fight, but they cannot win." "Sir, with respect, they may not need to win," Velinara said. "If they can damage us this badly with their weakest weapons, what will happen when we face their full military?" Zexhai looked at the tactical display. The main alien fleet was still approaching Earth. In 18 hours, they would begin the real invasion. The human orbital defenses were gone. Their space-based fighters were destroyed. The hard part was over. But as he studied the battle reports, Admiral Zexhai felt something he had never experienced in 300 years of conquest. He felt worried that these humans did not fight like other species. They did not surrender when defeated. They did not retreat when outnumbered. They seemed to get more dangerous when they were losing. What kind of creatures fought harder as they got weaker? What kind of species turned their own deaths into weapons? The Admiral was about to find out. The main Catherian fleet was 6 hours away from Earth. Admiral Zexhai stood on his bridge, watching the planet grow larger on his screens. The advance battle had been more costly than expected, but it was over. Now came the real invasion. 300 massive warships moved toward Earth in perfect formation. Each one carried enough firepower to destroy a continent. This time, there would be no mistakes. This time, the humans would learn their place. But something was wrong. His communication officers were picking up strange signals from the planet. "Admiral," reported Lieutenant Yexhai, "we're intercepting human military transmissions. They're sharing technical data openly across their entire planet." Zexhai frowned. "What kind of technical data?" "Everything, sir. Weapons designs, shield frequencies, ship construction plans. It's like their entire species turned into one giant research project." Down on Earth, Dr. Alex Turner had not slept in 4 days. His laboratory was filled with pieces of alien wreckage recovered from the orbital battle. Destroyed Catherian technology was scattered across dozens of work tables. "I've got it," Alex shouted to his team. "Their shield generators use a rotating frequency pattern. If we can build transmitters that match their rotation, we can disrupt their shields completely." Engineer Stephanie Clark looked up from her own workstation. She had been studying alien power systems. "Alex, look at this. Their ships use some kind of exotic matter for fuel, but the waste heat signature is enormous. If we can overload their cooling systems." Across the planet, similar scenes were playing out in thousands of laboratories. Human scientists were working together like never before. Every discovery was shared instantly with research teams on every continent. The aliens had given humanity 72 hours to prepare. They were about to learn that 72 hours was enough time for humans to change everything. Captain Ashley Davis was dead, but her replacement, Captain Lavra Martinez, was very much alive. She stood in the command center of the rebuilt Human Space Defense Network, where once there had been 12 orbital platforms. Now there were 200. "How is that possible?" asked Major Tyler Grant. "We didn't have the resources to build 200 platforms." Captain Martinez smiled grimly. "We didn't build them. We converted them. Every communication satellite, every space station, every piece of orbital junk bigger than a refrigerator. Stephanie Clark's teams have been working miracles." She pointed at the tactical display. "Those aren't military platforms. That's the International Space Station, with missile pods welded to its hull. That's a weather satellite, with a nuclear warhead strapped to it. That's a dead communications relay that we turned into a guided bomb. Tyler stared at the screen. You weaponized our entire orbital infrastructure? Every piece, Lara confirmed. And that's not all. See those new contacts? Those are civilian cargo ships. Stephanie's people figured out how to turn freight containers into kinetic weapons. When those things hit the alien ships at orbital velocity, on the alien flagship, Scholar Velinara was reviewing the latest intelligence reports with growing panic. The humans had done something unprecedented in galactic history. Admiral, she said, rushing onto the bridge, you need to see this immediately. Zex-Hi looked at her datapad. What am I looking at? Sir, the humans have reverse-engineered our technology. In less than 3 days, they've built functional copies of our shield disruptors. They've weaponized their civilian spacecraft. They've turned their entire orbital infrastructure into a weapons platform. The Admiral stared at the data. That's impossible. No species can adapt that quickly. Sir, they're not just adapting. They're innovating. Look at these modifications to our shield technology. They've found weaknesses in our systems that we didn't know existed. Zex-Hi felt cold. How many weapons platforms are they deploying? Conservative estimate? Over 5,000 improvised weapons systems. They've turned everything from communication satellites to garbage collectors into guided missiles. The final battle began when the alien fleet reached weapons range. Admiral Zex-Hi expected the humans to fire their primitive missiles and then wait to die. Instead, the entire space around Earth erupted in violence. 200 converted orbital platforms opened fire simultaneously. But these were not the crude weapons from the first battle. These were devices built using alien technology, powered by alien energy systems, and guided by alien targeting computers. The Catherian shields, which had easily deflected human missiles 3 days earlier, began failing under the barrage. Impossible, shouted Commander Thickener. Those are our own weapons being used against us. Before Admiral Zex-Hi could respond, something even more shocking happened. Human spacecraft began attacking his fleet. But these were not the tiny fighters. From the first battle, Captain Lara Martinez commanded the lead human vessel. It had been built in 72 hours using alien wreckage, human engineering, and pure desperation. It was ugly, crude, and completely unpredictable. All ships, this is Martinez, she broadcast to the human fleet. Remember, they don't know how our ships work because we built them from their garbage. Hit them hard and hit them weird. The human ships were unlike anything in the galactic database. They used alien engines powered by human nuclear reactors. They fired human missiles guided by alien computers. They moved in patterns that no military academy had ever taught. Commander Kexfer, still commanding his damaged destroyer, watched in horror as a human ship built from the wreckage of his own vessels attacked his formation. Sir, his tactical officer reported, that human ship is using our own shield frequency against us. Our weapons can't lock onto it. How is that possible? Sir, I think they built it from pieces of ships we lost in the first battle. They're using our own technology, but they've modified it in ways that make no sense. The battle raged for 6 hours. The alien fleet had superior numbers and better technology. But the humans had something the aliens had never encountered before. They had creativity born from desperation. They had tactics that no computer could predict. They had weapons that should not exist and strategies that defied logic. Most importantly, they had the absolute refusal to give up. Admiral Zex-Hi watched his fleet take damage that should have been impossible. Human ships built from scrap metal were punching holes in Catherian destroyers. Alien technology was being turned against alien ships. Humans were fighting in space, on the ground, and in dimensions the Admiral did not know existed. Sir, His communications officer shouted, "We're receiving a transmission from the surface. The humans are launching something." On the main screen, hundreds of missiles streaked up from Earth's surface. But these were not ordinary missiles. They were kinetic weapons moving at incredible speed, guided by alien targeting systems, and programmed with one simple mission: destroy everything that was not human. Evasive maneuvers. Zexhai ordered, but it was too late. The human missiles had been designed by people who had studied alien ships for 3 days straight. They knew every weakness, every blind spot, every vulnerable system. The Catherian flagship shuddered as multiple impacts tore through its hull. Explosions rocked the bridge. Admiral Zexhai was thrown to the floor as his command chair erupted in sparks. Scholar Valinar helped him to his feet. "Admiral, we need to retreat. Now." Zexhai looked around his burning bridge. Half his crew was dead. His weapons were offline. His shields were failing. Around him, the greatest fleet in Catherian history was being destroyed by creatures that had barely reached their own moon. "Sir," his communication officer called weakly, "the High Command is requesting a status report." Admiral Zexhai staggered to his communication station. Blood ran down his face from a cut on his forehead. His uniform was torn and burned. Behind him, his flagship was dying. He activated the transmitter and began recording his final message. "Hi. Command, this is Admiral Zexhai reporting from the Sol System. The mission has failed. Repeat, the mission has failed catastrophically." He paused as another explosion rocked his ship. "Recommend immediate species classification upgrade for humans. They are not suitable for conquest. They are not suitable for slavery. They are—" His voice broke as he watched a human ship ram one of his destroyers. ... They are what we would become if we had never learned to surrender." The transmission ended as the flagship's main reactor went critical. Admiral Zexhai barely made it to an escape pod before his ship exploded. Of the 300 ships that had approached Earth, only 37 survived to limp away from the battle. They fled into hyperspace, carrying a message that would change the galaxy forever. Humanity was awake. Humanity was angry. And humanity was coming. On Earth, Dr. Alex Turner stood in his laboratory, surrounded by captured alien technology. But he was not studying it anymore. He was building with it. "Alex," Stephanie Clark asked, "what are you working on now?" Alex looked up from his blueprints. His eyes were bright, with an idea that would have terrified Admiral Zexhai. "I'm designing our first interstellar ship," he said. "The aliens were kind enough to show us how to travel between stars. Now we're going to return the favor. Where are we going?" Stephanie asked. Alex smiled, and it was not a friendly expression. "We're going to find the Catherian Empire. We're going to have a conversation about slavery and conquest. And we're going to make sure they leave."